been joined by the Honorable Councilmember Mitch Englander. And we have a couple of items, but I see speaker cards for only one. This is a very historic day. Very rare indeed. When was the last time we had something like this, Roberto?
I don't recall.
I don't recall. In my 11 years, this is the first. God, 12 years, what am I saying? Okay. But it's Tuesday, October 2nd, and let's just dive into this. We understand that item number 2 will be continued in Plum to October 16th and Council October 30th. We do have our Director of Planning here. So, welcome, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Mike LeGrand, Director of Planning. A few things to report. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your work on the ad hoc committee at the stadium, as well as your leadership at council. As you know, the Farmers Field and Convention Center modernization was approved last week by the full city council. And so we're really happy to have delivered that project. I'd like to thank our staff, John Foreman and the major projects team, Henry Chun, Lucio Barra, and Kit Alvacuni for all their work on that project, as well as Dan Scott. They had really gone above and beyond the call of duty, missed vacation times, canceled vacations in order to make that project happen. Last week at Planning Commission, we also had a great milestone. The NBC Universal Vision Plan was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission, and we anticipate that coming in October, November to the Plum Committee. It also has to go before the Boundary Adjustment Committee prior to coming to council. So we're looking forward to moving that before the city council. As you know, Alternative 10, which is the non-residential component of that plan, was what was recommended by staff to be adopted. And the commission adopted that proposal with the support of Councilman LaBonge's office to not have a residential alternative on that site, but to allow for hotel and other uses. And we'll be happy to bring that forward to the Plum Committee and the full city council shortly. In terms of our ongoing project with the zoning code, the update of the 1946 zoning code is going very well. We had interviews with a number of proposed consultants that would be assisting the city on drafting that document, and so we're happy that that's moving underway, and we look forward to getting that started robustly in the next coming year. We're also beginning work on our department's budget for next year, and we look forward to working with this committee on their goals and objectives, but also to make sure that we're sensitive to the economy of the city, but also on tools we can bring to the table from planning to really help move the economy forward and grow the pie so that we can help ourselves through economic development realize the visions and the goals of this council.
No, I know on that point we've had this discussion where we wanted to demonstrate and amplify the connectivity between revenue for the city and the planning police powers as we know them. Are we closer to illustrating those relationships?
Yes, we are, and I'd be happy to bring back a presentation we can talk about some of our milestone accomplishments over the past year that would demonstrate kind of the increase in economic activity that happens with many of the approvals we do, but also the plans we do. And so one of the things on a national level, the planning field that's going on is discussions about that, telling the story through economic indicators and what good planning does for a city. And so we're looking to that national discussion to get some ideas, but also locally just utilizing the numbers that we see every day on the projects that we approve and we work on to make sure not only the public but the council understands the power of some of these projects, what they bring to the table, and if done right, how they can actually enhance the neighborhood character in those communities and have a lot of public benefits for those areas where these projects go in. So we're happy to bring back that conversation. Perhaps prior to the holidays, we can come back and under my director's report, I can share with you.
Well, I'd like to put in the context of the budget discussion.
Great.
If we can isolate this notion of leveraging before the budget really gets into a place where we're told what we cannot do versus investing and making us much more efficient to induce those types of benefits, if you will, to the customer, to our constituents, and to the city. So I'm hoping we can get there.
Great.
Go ahead. I know I interrupted you.
No problem. So we'll be happy to come back and have those discussions during the budget process. And that concludes my report.
Okay. And that also satisfies your Italian Heritage Month presentation, right?
Yes, this is Italian Heritage Month, and Councilman Biscayne made sure to fully address it at council, I believe.
Good for you. And I just want to take a moment to thank the staff. I will not stop recognizing their sacrifices and the work, the hours they're putting in, and how thin they're really stretched. And so I'm looking forward to how we keep pushing in that direction. So thank you for that. Any comments, observations on this item? This is planning direction. Okay, thank you, Councilman Englander. So let's go to item 1, and just for the just when you come to the microphone, give us your name and address. You can tell the acoustics are not the best, so if you speak into the microphone, we can hear you better. Roberto Brown should read the item into the.
Sure, council members. Item 1 is an appeal by Mark Stratton on behalf of the Bel Air Skycrest Property Owners Association and the Brentwood Residents Coalition. They're appealing the 2 land use entitlements for the development of the athletic field as relates to a private school in CD 11.
Okay. Now, typically we make sure the appellant has the time needed to give us the reason on why they are appealing. But I also have notes here indicating that there has been some level of agreement between the school and the neighbors, but that does not take away your ability to speak. So I'm not going to get greedy here. We only have one item, so we'll go through the comment. So let's go through the appellants, and we believe we have Mark Stratton and John Given. Are you the appellants on record?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm John Given. I actually represent the appellants.
Okay. I'm sorry, one more time?
John Given,
Okay.
on behalf of the appellants. Mr. Stratton will speak after me.
Okay.
If that's okay.
So are we good?
We're almost good. I just have brief comments to give you a little bit of background.
I was trying to get away with it there. but
Well, I'll
no.
make it as short as I can. I appreciate that. So, I submitted a letter to the record in support of the appeal, obviously, and attached to that letter are 2 exhibits. The first of the 2 exhibits reflect the state of our agreement, which is the conditions of approval. They're actually jointly submitted by the appellants and the applicant in this case. So that there shouldn't be a lot of contention in adopting those. We met many, many times. I appreciate the excellent work that Merman School did and their representative, Mr. McDonald, and the council office was really very helpful with that, and we appreciate that. But in addition to the conditions of approval that we're asking for you to recommend adoption of at council, we're also asking that they adopt our revised findings. There's very substantial evidence from the community of impacts related to the project, but the findings unfortunately state that there are no impacts to the community. We think that the findings that we've suggested, which have really minor modifications, are an improvement in the sense that the conditions of approval are, to mitigate community impacts. If the findings themselves state that there are no impacts, that doesn't make a lot of sense logically. So the findings that we recommended don't actually impose any additional burden on the applicant, and they don't suggest that there are unmitigated impacts. What they say is the community is adversely impacted, and as a result, the conditions of approval should be adopted. And that's essentially the case. And really, that's all I have to say, unless you have any questions.
I don't have any questions. Councilman Englander?
I'm reading through all the red line changes, and I'm
In which exhibit, sir?
the one from you.
But there's an Exhibit A, which is the conditions of approval, which we jointly agree on, and there's an Exhibit B, which is the findings that we're recommending.
The condition, it's under it's conditions of approval, C1. So entitlement conditions,
I'm sorry, which?
under entitlement conditions, it's labeled C1 as the beginning of the page.
Okay.
And you have There's various red line changes.
Yes, the joint red line conditions are a document that we and the applicant agree on.
So all those changes that are redlined in here.
The changes that are redlined reflect what they, the red line exists because CPC made their determination, and we wanted to make sure that the language that they had approved was before you as well, but the red line reflects our agreement as to what the conditions of approval ought to be.
They seem pretty straightforward and simple.
We
So it
agree.
doesn't sound like you guys were that far apart. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We do have a group of names here that are identified as appellants, so we'll go through the process here. We have Barbara Borsch. Okay, Mark Stratton. So everyone's passing the buck, huh?
Keeping it interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Your name, please?
I'm Lois Becker. I live at 3100 Corda Drive, and I'm the community liaison for Bel Air Skycrest, the residential neighbors just west of the school. The institutions are important, but they do impact us, and that is why we've been so engaged and have put so much time and energy into this project, along with planning, Merman, and the council office. It's been an arduous process, but thanks to that process, I'm here today to tell you that we have reached an agreement on the conditions with the modifications agreed to by Merman and the community and supported by the council office. We are satisfied that these conditions will mitigate the project impacts in terms of view, noise, light, traffic, and parking, and strike a livable balance between residential zoning and institutional uses. And we have one other issue, the inaccuracies in the findings as described in our appeal. The description of our geographic location is not accurate, and also some background information was left out, which is important to the history of the case. These are small technical changes. They will not affect the Merman School or its project in any way, but they are very important to the community. It is important that the findings accurately represent the community. We urge you to recommend approval of Merman's project with the recommended changes in Exhibits A and B. And again, I want to thank Bob and Michelle in planning, everyone at Merman, Dr. John West, David Royal, Wally Marks, Rob Woolley, and Kevin McDonald, and especially Joaquin Macias of CD11 for bringing us all to the table, as Councilman Rosendahl has always done, and for guiding the process to what we foresee will be a mutually satisfactory conclusion for all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So I have, and it says here not speaking, Brenda Fedler, but I'll just read your name into the record. Okay, unless you feel compelled to speak, but I'm not encouraging you. Thank you, though, for making the trip to City Hall. We also with us Barbara Dorman, Wendy Sue Rosen, and Kevin McDonald. Would you like to come on up? Please.
Hi. I'm Mark Stratton. I brought the appeal.
Okay.
And, I'm a member of the Bel Air Skycrest board, and I want to address the findings issue. A week ago, after our first postponement, we spent a couple of hours walking around the neighborhood telling residents about what was going on with the project and asking if they wanted to sign letters from the community. When we quoted the findings, which basically said that the residential properties to the west, which is us, are not adversely affected, people got really, kind of animated. And an 80-something minister response was, you've got to be kidding, not feel the impacts, and he signed a letter. Another resident whose kids go to Merman said, I'm going to be here after they go to finish Merman, and we feel and hear everything. She signed. It was a Sunday, so a lot of people weren't home, but we got 50 people to sign. And we knew that this was something that people would care about, but we wanted to address the inadequacy of the findings, but we really didn't know how much they would care about it. So we're really thankful, to Merman and the council office, and you have copies, I believe, of these letters. We hope that you will adopt the change in the findings and the conditions, and I want to thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And Any other names I called up like to come on up? So I literally went through the whole public comment, so. Well, it's up to you guys. Okay, it's orchestrated. Yeah, that's good.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Wendy Rose, and I'm also an appellant in the case representing Brentwood Residents Coalition. I first really want to thank the Planning Department. This was a very difficult case. This property was owned first by Stephen S. Weiss Temple. It was leased by the Bel Air Presbyterian Church, and now Merman has taken it over. So this was a very lengthy process. It was not an easy project to do. We're consolidating all of the uses of the property. And so just a big thank you to Bob Duenas and Michelle Singh for all of their work on the project. Also the council office for bringing us all together to address what remained our concerns from the community's perspective in terms of conditions that we felt needed to be added to address the impacts. We rely on these determinations in these projects not only to accurately reflect the history of these projects, but also as the controlling documentation so that when we have an issue, we go back, we pull this document. This document really tells us everything about this project, this property. So it's really important to the community that the conditions that we've asked for, and I know that they're mutually agreed upon, so we don't need to really talk about them a lot, are imposed, but also that the findings are accurate, reflect the proper relationship of the geography for the project to the property of the residential neighbors. So we just ask that you take a close look at our very few changes but important changes to the community and that you adopt both Exhibits A and B today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Councilman. Kevin McDonald, Jeffrey Mangles, Butler and Mitchell, representing Merman School. I am pleased, as I think most people are, at how things have turned out. It was a complicated case in some ways because of the details involved in the entitlements that we went through, but at the end of the day, we've come together essentially on everything except a couple of minor items. Just to be clear, the Exhibits A and B that Mr. Given attached to his letter include the red line conditions as Exhibit A and red line findings as Exhibit B. We are in full agreement with all the red line changes on Exhibit A for the conditions. Those were conditions that the neighborhood had brought to us after we had a site visit after the City Planning Commission approval, and we accepted everything that was suggested, and they're accurately reflected in that Exhibit A. However, Exhibit B, having to do with the findings, we feel are an inaccurate statement of the conclusions that were made at the City Planning Commission hearing. The findings are indeed important. The findings are written to support the conclusions that are ultimately made by the decision maker, and that's how they are framed in the City Planning Commission's action. The suggested changes make those findings negative and do not support the conclusions of the City Planning Commission, at least the way they decided it and deliberated over it, and based on the evidence that was before it. So, as I say, I'm pleased overall. I know my client, the Merman School, is also pleased. We've had come together after vast differences with the neighborhood group, and I think we've come together in a very positive way that will last. However, I must insist that the record be kept intact with respect to the findings that were made at the City Planning Commission hearing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McDonald. I typically have the staff give us a report, but since I was under understanding that we have an agreement, which it sounds like we do, I thought I'd bypass that phase of the presentation. But given what we just said, Bob, before I say attaboy, Bob, the findings that they're referring to, are they easily, can we resolve this difference?
Easily, no.
I'm going with the flow here.
Yeah, easily, no. Unfortunately, let me just make one little statement just to the findings. I won't get into the other parts of the
Right.
bill. They've agreed to a lot. They have come together quite a bit. The action the Planning Commission took was based on the mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the project. Yes, the site was involved in a larger EIR for another school, had a lot of mitigation measures. We were just focused on the athletic field. When we did our initial study, we found it didn't warrant an EIR. That's why we issued the mitigated negative declaration. We found some areas being impacted, so we issued mitigation measures. The verbiage now that's being discussed is we found impacts. The key is, were they adverse impacts to that level? We found that they were not, and the Commission found they were not at that level. They were impacts that needed mitigation to a level of less than significance, and those conditions were added. We were directed to look at the previous EIR. Some key areas were the views, noise, glare. We did look at the previous EIR and how it addressed, for the athletic field, the impacts.
Right.
It found on many of those no significant adverse impact. They did find impacts, but not the adverse impacts that are being requested to be identified now. That's why the Commission recommendation was as such, and that's why the Commission, after testimony, took their action.
Okay.
So that's all I really want to say with that. And if you have any
Okay.
other questions,
No, I think I'm going to stop while we're ahead, so, but I appreciate the clarity here. Joaquin, do you have a question? Okay, Joaquin, you want to come on up? First, I want to thank you for your hard work. I know the challenges that are there in your office, and I thank you for your stamina and focus. But let me ask you a question. The issues that are being addressed here, can you work them out between now and before it comes to council? Are you confident we can do that?
Well, I think this is the crossroads in terms of these last three remaining issues, and just in terms of language, I think they're relatively mild. So I don't, in terms of an agreement between the two sides on these remaining issues before tomorrow?
My impression is that we can vote to support this, given the agreement we are hearing. And given the substance of the case, it sounds like all of the key issues have been resolved. And now it's about how we present the report to the full council. So my question to you is, do you see yourself, along with Bob and the parties involved, coming to the council floor with the adjustments needed so we can move this on?
No, I think Exhibit A, everyone has agreed on. Exhibit B is still a point of contention.
This is in council tomorrow, my understanding.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And no, we've been working on this for well over a year, even after the CPC determination. And so everything you have is a result of, the two groups working together. And at this point, there's...
Let me ask it a different way.
Okay.
Can we move this on from Plum? If you get the support from both council members, can we move this on, and will you be ready tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, therefore, I'd make a recommendation that we deny the appeal but accept the change in conditions A, not the conditions or the findings in B, and move it forward with, and ask also that the council office will continue to work with until this comes to council tomorrow with both parties.
Madam Attorney?
Well, before you move there,
Go ahead.
Okay, so the council member did want to go on record with saying that everyone has worked tirelessly on this, and he's pleased that they have come to some agreement, but does feel that the changes in B are pertinent because they clarify the record in terms of the impact to the community and the actual history of the property. So I just wanted to go on record as saying that before you moved it forward to the full council.
Okay. Actually, no. Okay, come on. Tell me you're going to show me the light at the end of the tunnel.
Kevin McDonald. I just spoke to my clients. I think we can work with the language that's been offered. Certain things we're going to have to avoid. But we're all for playing with that language on those findings between now and tomorrow morning. And I think we can do it as we adjourn right here.
Okay, so we could just move this on as reported by the department. Okay, so that'll be the action of this committee. Wow, that was painless. This is one for the record. Okay, so we're set. That's the action of this committee. Anything else?
The action being to deny the appeal, right?
Yes. So, anything else, Roberto?
Public comment.
Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.